Bolson was particularly attractive to me because it was so different from what I was accustomed to. You know? And I first came down with my 4-year-old son, just exploring around for the fun of it. And when we stumbled across Bolson, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was like, wow, I didn't know places like this existed. It's as simple as the fact that most of our neighbors, you know, chop wood, you know, to heat their house, you know, which seems like, so what? You know, why go back to that? But, you know, from there to the fact that fences are to primarily keep animals out or in, no, and not to keep people out. You know, and if you're out hiking and you come across somebody's fence, you just hike through the fence and you keep on going. And if you stumble across their front door, you say hello, and they typically would invite you in to, you know, have mate or something, and you know, share a meal with you, as to shoo you away. One of the first people that I was introduced to here was Fernando Pia, who's an agronomic engineer, and we were sitting around in the evening. We were talking about, you know, our plan, you know, individual, personal, you know, hopes and dreams and goals for the future. And Argentinians are really good about that. You know, they really enjoy talking about that stuff. And we sat around and we dreamed up this idea of starting it was kind of like one of these, wouldn't that be cool if we could do, you know? And we kind of like let the ideas run and run and run. And by the time we were done, we had this idea of what came to be in English a Center for Investigations and Teaching Sustainable Agriculture. So we put the thing together, and we came up with some funding for it, and he continues to run the project here 20 some odd years later. He's taught thousands of people what's called bio-intensive double digging.
I don't know if you can read here, but this story started when Mark invited me to have the first workshop with John Gibbons. John Gibbons developed these bio-intensive meters 40 years ago in North California, a little town that is Willett, and he developed this meter from the last 40 years. For have an idea, this meter is in about 100 countries, and his book is translated in 10 languages. No, he's very famous in all the world because he developed a system that you can have 2 up to 4 times more yields per unit area, and with only with hand tools. John said that he don't produce food, he produces soil. Instead of what is going on in the world, that the arable land is going down. They said that we lose 1,500,000 of hectares per year. The arable land, no, because of bad techniques. Something like this, You will make a little cake, a little compost. Something like this with water, air. Up to 4 months, you will have this, more or less. In this one, compost portion, that's right. There are more than 6 million of microorganisms, bacteria, fungus, that keep the soil in balance.
So Fernando has been teaching from his own farm, you know, this particular technique for the last 20 some odd years. We've been doing it cooperatively, you know, the two of us. Okay. Now what he does is he also conducts those workshops out of this property. Okay, so our idea was to put together like a visitor center here. We invite people from all over Argentina, and some have come from Chile as well, to come here and do like 3- and 4-day workshops. So they spend the night, and Fernando does all of the theoretical stuff inside here in the building, and then he actually does the you know, physical demonstration of the techniques in the garden. Initially, the thought was to just do a kitchen here where we could do like all of our preserves and so forth, and also have like a small space to receive the students for the biointensive courses, and also like perhaps like an office upstairs, and that was about it. And then as we began to draw it all out, we thought, well, you know, what we really ought to do is have like a full dining space so that we have a little bit, okay, fine. And then we realized, but you know, people sleeping where? Where are people going to sleep? The initial intention was that they would stay in tents and so forth. But we thought to ourselves, you know, if we add a few meters this way and a few meters that way, we can put some little bedrooms upstairs. We were going to leave it all open, right? Just as kind of like an open loft. And we thought, and make it a little bit bigger, and we can actually divide it off into little rooms so people are, you know, a little bit more privacy. So the bigger it got, the more of a challenge it was for me to do it personally. I'm no architect, I'm no engineer. And that's where Marcelo came in. It was like, Marcelo, save me.
Nosotros tratamos de construir esto con la mayor cantidad de elementos renovables. No es posible hacerlo con todos esos elementos, pero bueno, utilizamos la mayor cantidad posible.
I'd say close to 85% of the project was built with on-site materials. And the straw bale, that's just material that we harvested ourselves off the farm.
Nosotros tenemos 2 meses de temperatura de verano, digamos, donde hace calor. En general después es de templado a frío todo el año. Entonces, realmente el ponerse a pensar de qué manera podemos administrar el recurso para calefaccionar las casas es muy importante.
Con esta cocina económica, ¿no? Cocinamos, obviamente, hacemos el pan. ¿El pan?
Sí.
Sí, hacemos el pan y además tiene como serpentina, caños adentro, ¿no? Del fuego para calentar el agua, para la cocina. Toda la cocina calentamos el agua acá. Cuando estamos con la cocina prendida, calentamos todo el agua para lavar los platos y todo. Entonces un solo fuego hace todo. Y además da para calentar el lugar, que está hecho como bien aislado con los fardos, ¿no? de paja. Esta cocina, con un solo fuego, realmente casi hacemos calefacción para todo. Y la estufa rusa de Finstove es casi de más.
Excepto lo que aparecía como una cosa realmente aceptable era la electricidad, pero teníamos que generarla nosotros, es decir, y ahí apareció la idea de la construcción de una usina que genera electricidad para sostener esto. Para mi suerte, porque realmente aprendí muchísimo, aprendí mucho trabajando con Mark, hemos estado...
Pero realmente fuimos como descubriendo. Sí,
fue
estudiando el tema juntos.
Realmente es una construcción que tiene tomos de dibujos de detalles. Hubo una intención y la intención es hagámoslo lo mejor posible. Y nos encontramos personas, entre él, yo, los carpinteros, los pintores, que tenían la misma intención. Y me parece que el más importante de todo es que es la demostración de que se puede vivir en la sustentabilidad.